Jaden Yuki was a prodigy, a duelist who rose through Duel Academy with nothing but elemental heroes and a dream. But somewhere along the way, something broke, and what emerged wasn't just a fallen version of Jaden, it was something far more dangerous. The Supreme King. What most people don't realize is that this wasn't a random descent into darkness. This was evolution, a metamorphosis brought on by pain, betrayal, and the realization that light alone couldn't protect what he loved. Today we're going to break down why the Supreme King's evil hero deck wasn't just a corrupted version of Jaden's old strategy. It was the final form he was always meant to reach. At the start of GX, Jaden's deck represented more than just fusion monsters. It was about synergy, friendship, and limitless potential. Elemental heroes were iconic. Flamewing Man, Sparkman, Clayman, simple names, big dreams. They weren't always the strongest cards, but they worked together, and that reflected who Jaden was, a duelist who believed in everyone around him. Every duel felt like an anime moment. Every win, earned with heart, and even when he lost, he smiled. Because for Jaden, the joy of dueling was everything. His deck wasn't just his weapon, it was his identity. An idealist's toolkit, built not just to win, but to inspire. But like all ideals, it was fragile. But then came Neos, and everything changed. Jaden's deck lost its core identity. Contact fusion was flashy, sure, but it came at the cost of consistency. His combos became reliant on lucky draws and plot armor, and would never actually work in real life. Cards like Storm Neos and Rainbow Neos looked impressive, but didn't feel like the same Jaden. The deck was slower, less adaptable, and most importantly, it lacked the soul his original heroes had. Neos wasn't just a new boss monster, it was a symptom, a reflection of Jaden's inner confusion. Behind the scenes, Jaden was breaking, losing friends, losing himself, and then he lost Yubel. That loss didn't just hurt, it shattered him, and it forced Jaden to confront something every duelist fears. What do you become when your ideals no longer work? The moment Jaden stepped into the darkness, he became something else entirely. The Supreme King didn't just represent anger, he represented clarity. This was Jaden stripped of all distractions, no sidekicks, no smiles, just raw purpose, and his deck, it reflected that transformation perfectly. Evil heroes weren't just edgy versions of old cards, they were upgrades. Malicious Edge punished your opponent for even having monsters. Dark Fusion made it impossible to disrupt his combos. And Evil Hero Dark Gaia, that card, demolished everything. It wasn't about combos anymore, it was about control. No room for fun, no room for hope, just domination. But what's fascinating is how calculated it all was. Jaden didn't lose himself, he streamlined himself, he weaponized his pain. If you look closely, every card in the Supreme King's deck was a darker mirror of what Jaden used to rely on. Blade Edge, gone, replaced by Malicious Fiend, towering, terrifying, relentless. Flamewing Man, replaced by Inferno Wing, a hero who didn't save but punished. Polymerization, replaced by Dark Fusion, a ritualistic pact with the shadows. It's not that Jaden abandoned his strategy, he refined it. These are all upgrades. He turned his weaknesses into strengths. The need for backup became a need for board control. The old reliance on friendship became an obsession with efficiency. The Supreme King deck solved the problems Neos introduced. It didn't rely on hope or gimmicks, it just worked. And the craziest part, it was still him, still Jaden, just awakened. So here's the truth, the Supreme King wasn't Jaden's downfall, it was his ascension, a transformation needed out of necessity. A darker version of himself, yes, but one that understood the flaws of his past, one that removed the weaknesses, discarded the sentimentality, and became something truly unstoppable. Evil Hero wasn't a side deck, it was the final evolution of Jaden Yuki's dueling soul, a duelist forged in both light and shadow, not because he wanted to, but because he had to, because sometimes the world doesn't need a smiling hero, Sometimes it needs a king. Most duelists fear becoming their darker self. Jaden, he became his and mastered it. And through that transformation, he showed us something profound. That true growth sometimes requires breaking apart first. Only then can you rebuild, stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than ever. If you found this story powerful, we've got more coming. From Yubel's twisted plan to the origin of Neo's, this is just the beginning. Subscribe to Duel Origins to follow the full Jaden saga. And if you want to build your own Supreme King deck in real life, use code DOOMX on cardtrader.com for 5% off your first purchase. The darkness isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's just the next phase. And for Jaden Yuki, it was always his destiny.